Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Yes indeed, I'm not the first man and I'm sure I won't be the last man to be tempted by the devil. Diver by Bulova. Don't worry, I haven't just started worshipping the Dark Lord, I've just bought another watch, which I'm sure some people would say was just as bad. Now I have already featured the Bulova Oceanographer, aka the Devil Diver, so called because it features the number 666 on the dial on the channel before. I borrowed and reviewed Mr. P's blue dialed version on the bracelet a couple of years ago when this model was re-released. And I really liked it. It's a gorgeous looking watch, definitely a little bit unusual, and definitely one of the best looking retro reissue dive watches that I have reviewed, and I have reviewed a fair few of them. Of course there were moans, of course there were niggles, aren't there always though? I gave that watch back to Mr. P, but you know I have a bit of a thing for Bulova retro reissues, and when I was in a Sydney watch shop a couple of weeks ago and the owner was wearing one of these in bright orange, I was smitten. I rather like orange, you see. And when I saw one pop up on a Facebook group at a very good price, I jumped on it, and here we are. And the colour is just insane. It is undoubtedly the most intense orange I've ever seen on the dial of a watch. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Alright, let's get into the box. Standard Bulova packaging. I've seen this plenty of times before, and I'm sure you have too. But I gotta warn you, you might need sunglasses for this one. Holy crap, that is orange. There is every other shade of orange in the known universe, and then there is that. It is by far the most intense shade of almost fluorescent orange that I've ever seen on the dial of a watch, and I don't mind admitting that the colour was probably 80% of my decision-making process when buying this particular watch. There are some other things in the box, by the way. This is Australian stock, so it came with a 3-year warranty, has 2 years of that remaining because I bought it used, and there's a little hang tag as well with the model number, which is 96B530 if you care. All I care about, frankly, is that colour. And it's obviously not just the dial, they've used orange in the first quarter of the bezel insert too, although stick around for the moans and niggles section. I said in the intro that I spotted this on the owner's wrist in a watch shop a few weeks ago. His bezel didn't look like this bezel. More on that later. But for now, let's just take in the orange, and to emphasise just how intense it is, here is the Bulova next to my Seiko SKX GMT, also in orange. Well, Seiko calls it orange. It's a bit pathetic next to the Bulova, isn't it? Better luck next time, Seiko. Try harder. I guess the other 20% of my decision-making process centred on this watch's dimensions. I did enjoy Mr. P's blue version, but it was the larger 44mm. This orange dial comes in a size that's definitely more in my wheelhouse and also true to the original watch, that being 41mm in diameter. Thickness is the same at 14.4, which sounds a lot, but it doesn't look or feel like a big boy on wrist because of the cushion case, and the cushion case gives a beautiful 45mm lug to lug. Not so beautiful is the 19mm lug width. This one therefore will be staying on the fitted rubber strap, but a rubber strap does save weight, and as supplied this one comes in at 99 grams. If you invert 99 you get 66. Perhaps there is something devilish going on here today after all. Water resistance is 666 feet, which is 200 meters in new money. Sapphire is box double dome, and the movement in the back is a Miyota caliber 821D. Yes, the movement was not part of my decision-making process because I am not a big fan of the Miyota 8000 series calibers. They're accurate, they're reliable, but they're pretty basic in 2023. This one hand winds, but it does not hack, for example, which really is pretty rare and pretty poor considering the RRP of this watch is over $700 US. 21 joules, 42-hour power reserve, but unidirectional winding as you can see. Rotor wobble doesn't tend to be a big issue with dive watches though because of the thick case, and the premium 8000s like this are a lot quieter than the basic rough 8215. Case back is stainless steel, screw on and fairly unremarkable. Case finish is also fairly unremarkable, high polish throughout and therefore prone to the odd scuff and scratch. You can see a few on the bottom edge of the mid case on this watch for example. Nothing I'm going to cry about considering what I paid for it, don't worry, I'll talk about price later. Not only is the lug to lug super short, but the case also curves down towards the lugs, hence why it wears so nicely and doesn't feel like a big thick watch. The vintage style unguarded crown is just over 5.5mm, It has the Bulova retro logo etched into it and it's nice and grippy. The bezel is an interesting one, coin edged but only with a very thin upper serration to it. It still provides plenty of grip though. The bezel is 120 click unidirectional dive style. It feels okay if not spectacular. It's a bit tinny, especially if you rotate it quickly, but everything lines up nicely. Now, I've never been able to properly determine what the insert is made of, not officially in any Bulova collateral anyway. It's not, however, made of sapphire because I tested it and it came out negative. I assume, therefore, it is some kind of mineral or perhaps acrylic. It certainly has got that glossy finish to it, like acrylic should. So this orange version of the Oceanographer comes supplied with this 19mm integrated rubber strap. It has some crosshatch patterning down the centre and some stitching that serves no purpose other than decoration, but it does look good and it is soft and comfortable. The Bulova branded buckle and tang are an appropriate size and have mixed, brushed and polished surfaces. The strap has two retainers, both of which are mobile, but it's a bit of a tight fit to squeeze the tail of the strap between them, but at least that means it doesn't flap around when it's on wrist. But enough of this, let's get back to the festival of fluoro orange and have a look at the dial and handset. This is a straight one-for-one of the original 1972 Oceanographer. Even though it isn't referred to as a sector dial, it does have those black crosshairs dividing the dial into 4 sectors. A period correct Bulova logo is applied, the rest of the dial text is just printed on. Oceanographer above the pinion, automatic, snorkel and the infamous 666 beneath it. There's also a minute track printed inboard of the indices, and the indices are unlike anything else I've seen. Have a look at them from this angle. They're little plastic cylinders set into silver claws, the same kind of claws you would get in a diamond ring setting, for example. It's very unusual, but they give the dial enormous depth and a really interesting look when viewed from an oblique angle. Talking of unusual, this watch has an internal Cyclops date magnifier, again something I've only seen 2 or 3 times elsewhere and certainly never in combination with that style of index. Now those indices do mean this watch has a bit of a stumpy handset. If the hands were longer, particularly the minute hand and the second hand, they would foul against those cylinders. Having said that, I'm pretty sure they could be an extra mil longer each because they do look a bit short. It is still readable though because the hands are white against vibrant orange and they have that black centre section at the pinion, which I always really like. The date complication is at 3 o'clock and has a high polished silver frame surrounding it. I think it's a great looking dial overall, despite or perhaps because of its idiosyncrasies and those period correct features like the logo and the text. The unspecified lume, however, is very modern in its application. It's so good initially that it lights up the orange dial. It would have been nice if they had put some extra lume in the bezel insert, but as it is, we just get the lume triangle. And when I turn the speed up, it does fade, but it is still fairly legible at the end of my test. On wrist, this thing hits a real sweet spot for me personally. A heap of presence because of the high polish and the insane colour, but still with a short lug to lug and a weight of less than 100 grams. I also feel I got quite lucky with the strap. My chosen hole, the one I would naturally go for, means the watch has just the right balance between fit and firmness. One hole tighter and my hand would go blue, one hole looser and the watch would flop everywhere. Kind of unusual fit on that fitted rubber strap. So it fits me well, but I'm not suggesting everyone will get as lucky as I did. But can we just admire that colour one more time? Not for everyone, I'm sure. But my collection has now got to the point where I'm happy to add an orange or a yellow or a purple or a teal blue or something, just for fun and something a bit different from the rest. And that's the pocket shot. I've got orange t-shirts and orange hoodies to match this if I wanted to, but a watch dial this bright, your clothes don't necessarily have to be bright themselves. Alright, moans and niggles, I haven't talked about the price yet, have I? The Bulova RRP of these is 11.50 Aussie. That's a lot of money. That's too much money. The Aussie discount online retailer price for one of these is $7.50, but with around $6.50 available using a code. That's much better, but it's still not amazing considering the fairly crappy movement. I've no idea why Bulova aren't putting 9,000 series in these rather than 8,000 series. The RRPs wouldn't look so ambitious if they did that. I paid 400 Aussie for my used example. I'm happy with a couple of scratches and 1 year less warranty, but with a much lower asking price. JOMASHOP has them for $425 USD if you're in the States. I'll leave a couple of links in the description of the video. 19mm lug width means you'll be sticking with the original rubber strap, and the internal Cyclops is interesting, but not actually that functional. I reckon it's like 1.25 magnification, if that. And I mentioned the bezel earlier on. Looks nice and orange on this one, but the one I saw a couple of weeks ago, the bezel insert had faded badly. It looked a bit weird because the dial hadn't. So do be warned, if you pick one of these up, don't leave it in the sunshine because it might not look this way for long if you do. But overall, I'm very happy with my purchase, and if you find one of these at the right price, I'm sure you'll be happy with yours. The colour, the indices, the cyclops, the faithful retro looks, all combine to create a unique package. Look, I guess every watch is unique, but some watches are more unique than others. So there you have it. If you like your Bulova Oceanographer with the colour turned up to 11 out of 10, this is clearly the one to go for. But it still fails me why Citizen would put a relatively crappy automatic in it, considering they own the company that makes the movements. I guess it's all about money. Talking of which, don't pay retail and don't be frightened of buying lightly used. And finally, don't be frightened of wearing matching orange t-shirts. While you're here, you may as well check out my review of the larger blue dial version on the bracelet, or the Aerojet, probably the most frustratingly beautiful but flawed watch that I have ever reviewed from the brand. Thanks for making it to the end. I will see you again in the next one.